Hi, and welcome back to another episode of jPlay. I'm Marcus, and today I will be starting another full playthrough episode series about this game here, Tomb by John Sinzer. I have to confess that I was not even aware that this game does exist, to be honest, and I more or less stumbled upon this when I read through some articles on Board Game Geek and so on, and then I found it pretty for a decent price somewhere out there in a source not mentioned here. I bought it myself. I did some test plays with some in my game group and I really enjoy it a lot. There are really not too many components as you might think. So basically this is a deck of several cards. So we have the Tomb cards here, we have some of the in cards here, especially the Tomb cards deck. That's a huge deck. I don't know how many 100 cards there are, and this is the base game. There is still this Cryptmaster expansion with I think more or less doubles the amount of cards here. So these are some items, spells and prayers and stuff like that. These nice dice here that show some basically only if you are successful or not. So if you see this X, then your dice roll was successful. But I think the biggest part, and I think I should have to show you that, are the different characters that are in play, which you're about to draft during the game here. And I think there are over 80 of these characters in the back here. And they're more or less all unique in respect to their attributes, in respect to their abilities and stuff like that. So this is really nice. In this game, 1 to 6 players compete about who will be the most mightiest party to raid this tomb here. And with the tomb consists of several crypts. And each party consists of up to 5 different characters. There are some special conditions under which you're allowed to have at least maybe 1 character more, but normally your limit is 5. Each of these characters show different skills and show different attributes. So for example, this would be a fighter wizard and she has some magic dice, she has also some attack dice, and normally each character also brings one special ability with her. For example, if she has a reaction ability. If Regrain's first action in a combat round is to cast a spell, she may immediately perform an additional combat action. Not too bad. Or here, Nestra the Rogue here, your party gains +2 move, and she also has a reaction ability. If one of your monsters would wound a character in your party, Nestra rolls twice her normal attack dice during her next attack. Nice. And as I mentioned, there are around, I think, really 84 different characters in this big bag, and really they provide so vast number of different abilities that it's really hard to show them all to you. Of course, I will try to do my best and show you most of the components. I will really hope to see a lot of characters in this playthrough. This is what the game is all about, really. You drive them through, your characters will die, you will hire new characters and stuff like that. In order to win this game, the player with the most experience points by the end of the game wins this match. You gain experience for once by attacking these monsters here and of course defeating them, by more or less solving these traps or get around these traps successfully, or by collecting treasures here. I was really thinking a lot if I should do a solo scenario this time or if I should simulate at least a 2-player game. I decided to go with a normal 2-player game because you would really miss some of the cool parts in this game, and this is the whole backstabbing part of it. So normally when you would enter a crypt, the player to your left or to your right would then get the Cryptmaster, and then the Cryptmaster's job would be to make your life as bad as possible. In the solo player, which is also nice of course, this is a bit different of course because there is no other player apparently, so you have to just go through everything that you find there. This can be either traps, monsters or treasures, but you directly see what's in there, and that's not the case when playing with a real Cryptmaster to your left or to your right, who would really give you only that much information that you would really need to move on here. So I think that should be fine for you. Of course, then I have to treat the rules a little bit in respect because I'm also alone, so maybe I will show you only the cards of one player, not of the other player, but that's something I will figure out as I play. Let's just get started by setting up the board. I think I won't explain you the rules in advance because this is really a game you can learn as you go. This is the basic tomb here. There is also another more advanced tomb on the back side of this board. Maybe I show that in a second. And to the right, there is this inn, and this inn holds the 4 different inn stacks. So there are items, there are prayers, there are tactics, and there are spells down right here. You acquire these inn cards by taking an action at the inn. I think this is the only way to really get those cards. Of course, there are some stealing elements in this game with your rope, for example, but again, these are more or less than already some special rules or some special action that you can take during your turn. Let's have a quick look at the backside of this tomb, and you see there are way more tombs in this game. Most of these tombs also come with some special conditions, like those grave robbers here, which say turn, draw a tomb card and look at it, remove a card from a crypt and replace the card you drew. And there are way other cards like or crypts, for example crypts that would lose your some colored die and stuff like that. So this is really the advanced game, but I will only want to show you this game. So let's flip back to the normal basic side of this tomb. Let's set up the game board. Normally you would already do that in a multiplayer game by having some kind of a draft mechanism. So in turns, every player would place exactly 1 card from his hand. So every player draws 2 cards and then he can choose a card to place on one of these crypts until the crypt limit is reached. The crypt limit is printed here, so this crypt only can hold 2 crypt cards during setup at least. It doesn't make any sense to do this kind of drafting mechanism. So I will more or less populate these crypts now completely at random. So I give these tomb cards a good shuffle and then I will place those accordingly. Okay, the crypts are all closed and populated now, so that means the tomb is ready to enter. Starting with the starting player, each of the parties now draws 5 heroes from the back. And I chose to play the Fat Years optional rule, and this allows me to keep 2 of these 5 characters that I draw from this pack. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And these are the 5 characters I've been drawn, though. These are 4 fighters and 1 rogue, so the combination is not ideal. There are, I think, 4 classes in this play. So there's this rogue, the fighter, the cleric and the wizard. And at least we have drawn 2 different of them. So there's a rogue and a fighter. And I think I will really go for here the Iron Duke. So let's flip it over. Nice little fella. And the special ability of the Iron Duke says when the Iron Duke attacks, each success inflicts 2 wounds. Not too bad. And I think I will definitely need the rogue, because for once I can steal with the rogue, but the rogue is also capable of dealing with traps in the crypt. So I think I definitely need her, and this is Vestra. For once your party gains +3 move, and as a reaction when you enter the tomb, discard 1 card from any crypt. So this can be really nice. The 3 cards I've not chosen go back to the inn, so they can be hired in a later stage of this game. But now the red player also will get the chance to draw 5 different, or hopefully different characters from the back. So let's see. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And these are the 5 characters that the red player has drawn, and these are very nice. So I think I'm tempted to go with Igraine here. So she's the fighter and a wizard. And I think I will also go for the fighter rogue here, and this is Cerivil, the sender. And Cerivil's special ability is he rolls his green dice to attack before the monsters on each combat round. So this can be pretty nice. And I think Igraine is also nice because she would allow me to do an additional combat action if her first action would be to cast a spell. Again, the rest of these fellas go back to the inn and are waiting for their adventures. And now, as the red player has hired a sorceress, or basically a wizard, he's also allowed to draw a spell card from the inn. And a good thing about these spell cards here, and the same does apply for the prayers, is that you're allowed to hold them in your hand unless you are going to cast these spells or until you pray your prayers. The problem with this one is it's a good card, so this is a reaction card. Before entering a crypt, 1 character gains +2 HP until the end of the turn. This is very nice, especially if you have some weak characters in your party. But the problem is this one does not trigger the special reaction card ability from Igraine here, because this is basically not really the first thing that she does in the combat, because this happens before entering a crypt. But nevertheless, we will keep this card and we play it at a time, and I will show you how to cast these spells any minute now. The setup phase of this game is pretty short, so we can directly get started without further ado. And I think let's take the first action. Again, the blue player will be the starting player, and he has now several options to do. For once, he can take any number of free actions. Free actions are something like re-equipping your character cards or whatever, moving items from one character to the other. During your inn, you could also bank your treasure or your artifacts that you gain in a crypt. This is something hopefully I can show you later on. If you start your turn in the inn, you would automatically heal all your wounds of your characters and some of the other stuff. So these are the free actions. They have to be taken before you take your actual turn action. And the turn action are for once drawing 2 inn cards from any of these stacks. Of course, you can only take this turn action when you are at the inn. You can hire a character. You can move into the tomb and move within the tomb. If you are in the tomb and you have a cleric, you can heal your party. If you are in the tomb and you have a rogue with you, you can try to pickpocket from another party with your rogue. You can try to raid a crypt. You can flee from the tomb directly to the inn. Or you can take a turn action from any card or characters in your party. It has to be mentioned that you can only take one single turn action during your turn. There are of course some special conditions and cards in play that allows you sometimes to take a second action, but normally you can only take one real turn action. So let's just start with the blue player, and I think for his turn action he will go and hire a character, and I think he will go for a cleric because there's only one cleric at the inn right now. So we will take Cone Peacehand here. And Cone is pretty decent. So his reaction ability says, after you kill the last monster in a crypt, roll Cone's holiness dice. For each success, remove 1 wound from a character. That's definitely not too bad. He brings 3 blue holiness dice. He has at least some attack dice, and of course he brings, not of course, but he also brings a skill, which is not too bad. And we are also allowed to take 1 prayer, or to draw 1 prayer, because we just hired a cleric from the inn. And here is our prayer and thrall. React. At the start of your turn, your clerics gain +1 HP and +1 red holiness until the start of your next turn. Right now it's not the start of my turn, so I'm not allowed to use this card at this point in time. So I will show you how to pray or pray these prayers in the next turn. It is also to be mentioned that you will not replenish any character that's been hired from the inn. They normally only come back from the back if any hero dies in the tomb. So right now Red has to live with these 5 heroes that are left. And now it's already the turn of the red player, and I think he will also hire a character. And I'm tempted to take Kadeen, the wizard, down there. So let's grab him. And the special ability of Kadeen says, while you are CM, monsters may use spells attached to Kadeen. This is really nasty, and these are the elements that you normally don't see when you play the solitaire variant of this game, so this can be pretty mean. As this is a wizard, he's also allowed to draw a spell, and this is the Earthquake spell. And this is a reaction card. Each party in the tomb has their move reduced by the value equal to the caster's magic dice until the beginning of your next turn. Discard this card. So this can be a little bit mean, especially when the other party wants to go to a tomb where this player wants to go to, but overall that's not really a great card, but still it's nice to have it. Going back to the blue player, and the blue player could now play his Enthrall prayer, but I think he will not do that because he's not going to the tomb yet, so he will go for another option. This says to draw 2 inn cards. I think we will draw 1 item inn card and 1 tactic card. And here are our 2 inn cards. So one, we have the shield here, and the shield just gives us 2 hit points. And we have the backstab tactic card, and this is a reaction card. When you are making an attack roll, add your skill dice to your attack dice, and this is really nice. Items like the shield have to be equipped immediately, and there is no choosing. Basically, of course you can choose the character, but you have to play them. So I think I will give the shield to Vestra, I think. And there's also one thing that you have to keep in mind. You can only hold items, or each character can only hold items with one trait of the same kind. So Vestra would not be allowed to carry a second shield. The tactic card, I think I will play later on when it's time to do that. So when you're making an attack roll at your skill dice. And I think I will give this tactic card also to my rogue Vestra here, because she has the most skill dice. And I will then attach this card to Vestra. Later on, if Vestra will die because of a very bad situation in the tomb, all her attached cards like the shield or later the backstab card will be discarded from the game. So there's no chance of any other character in my party to take it. Of course, there might be characters that have a special ability to do this kind of stuff, but the normal rule says if she dies, everything that's attached to her will also disappear. Let's give it back to the red player, and I just noticed this awesome characters here. So Sir Aileron Dilshon, I think is the name, and this is a very nasty character, so I think red player will take him. And he's a fighter. And his special ability says, when you reveal monsters as the Crypt Master, you may add Aileron as a monster. Aileron may choose the target of his attack. This is also very nasty, because normally the defending or the raiding player can choose this. If Aileron kills a raiding character, he immediately attaches all the victim's attached cards. If Aileron survives, he returns to your party. So for once, he can really address a very mighty characters of the opposing hunting party or raiding party. Even if he will not, let's say, make it until, or will not survive this attack, he might still cause the other player lose some very valuable characters or items. So this is really a very nasty character, and I think I really missed his special ability when I did the first drafting. I think the blue player will again draw 2 in cards, so for one item card, and again I think a second tactic card. This is also not really great. Of course, we can move at least +4, which is not too bad. And the torch here gives us 1 blue attack die. This can be nice, but the tactic card, this really can be good. This is the Shatter Steel, and this is a battle action. While you are the Crypt Master, destroy an item or treasure card attached to a character in the raiding party. Discard this card. So this is really something also very nasty. You can play this as basically as a Crypt Master. You have to give up a battle action, but then you can destroy an item or a treasure. And this can be pretty mean. As our fighter is not really that strong, I think I will give the torch to this fighter. And remember, his special ability says when the Iron Duke attacks, each success inflicts 2 wounds, and a blue die brings us, I think, a 50-50 chance to inflict a wound. Then it's the red player's turn, and he will also draw 2 cards, and he will go for an item card, and he will draw a spell. And these cards are awesome. So for his item, he has Dwarven Hammer, which brings an attack value of 4 additional red dice, and that's red die has a 70% chance to inflict a success. And this character does not roll green or blue attack dice regardless of other bonuses. Okay, maybe then it's overall not so nice. So I think I really have to give this card to someone who has a very high value in red dice in total. And I think I will give this hammer to Cerevel here, because he could roll 4 green die, which he's not allowed to, but in return he gains 4 red die. So I think he dramatically increased his odds to do a success. I think the green die only has a probability of 30% in order to inflict a wound, and this has 70%. So this is very nice. And this is the Wall of Fire. This is also a reaction spell. Before a combat round begins, make a magic roll, TN3. This means you have to gain 3 successes. If successful, each monster suffers 1 wound before it makes an attack roll until the end of the turn. This is nice, but this counts as the caster's action for this combat round, and this is very nice because this fits very well into Sorcerer's Igri's special ability. So this is awesome. And before I end my episode, I will definitely show you how a crypt raid does happen. So I will choose for his blue player's action now to enter the tomb for once, and then I can move up to my moving limit, and I think this is now +4. So in total I can move 14 spaces within the tomb here, and this has to be done orthogonally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the entrance for this crypt here, but right now I cannot enter this. This will be a dedicated action during my next turn, and this says raid a crypt. Red player will play it similar. I think he will move here and then he will make the lighter one, and I already see I have made a mistake here. Only one card is allowed here. I don't know which I've discarded here, honestly, so I haven't checked this card yet. So he will move into this tomb here, and during the next turn he can enter the crypt. As the blue player enters the tomb now, he will now says, okay, react at the start of your turn. Your clerics gain +1 HP and plus red holiness die. And I think I will now keep it from now on as we are in the tomb, because there is no really disadvantage here. So I will now pray this prayer, and now I have to attach this prayer to a hero or a character that has at least 1 holiness die. Right now this is only the case of my cleric here, so I will attach this prayer to the cleric here, so he has now +1 HP and 1 plus red holiness die until the start of your next turn. But now it's the turn of the blue player again, and his action, he will says, I will enter the crypt and try to raid it. Normally you see here this little L. This means the player to your left would be the crypt master for this adventure. There are also tombs that shows an R, reflecting that the player to your right will be the crypt master. In this case, of course, this really doesn't matter in a 2-player game, and also I'm playing both roles, so nevertheless it will be the other player here. So what will now happen is the red player will take both of these cards, so he's now considered to be the crypt master, and he will check all the cards that he's handed in right now. And there is a special order in which you have to deal with these cards. The first thing that happens is that the raiding party has to deal with any traps, and this works like that way, is that the crypt master would say, hey, there's a trap, but he wouldn't mention what trap it is, because you don't have to familiarize in beforehand, or maybe you can remember from your last adventure, hey, I have dealt with this card already, so he's not going to prepare. The only thing that the crypt master will now tell the raiding party is, okay, you are allowed to use 1 or more characters for this trap here, and 1 or more already gives you a slight idea that this is definitely a harder trap than the normal trap. The most traps really allow you only 1 character to disarm it, and he also tells him with which attribute he's allowed to try to disarm this trap, and he would only say you can use skill. He won't tell him how difficult it is to disarm this trap here, so that the raiding player has to decide now how many characters he will assign to this one here. And as the blue player already know, okay, 1 or more, this seems to be a pretty tough trap. I have to use skill, so he says I will use my cleric and my skill, my rogue here. So in total he would now be allowed to roll 4 dice plus 2 blue dice, and an additional green die here from the cleric. So in total 5 green dice and 2 blue dice. So these are the dice that the blue player is allowed to roll in order to disarm the trap here, and right now he doesn't know how many successes he has to roll. So let's just do some rolling here. And these are 4 successes. Normally that's really not too bad, but now the crypt master would say, no, unfortunately this is not enough. This is the serpent's tooth, and in case of a failure, and he failed because he only rolled 4 successes, remove 1 character from the raiding party and return him or her to the inn. This is really nasty. And this is really tough. I don't know who to return, but I think I will give the Iron Druid back to the inn. And what happens with characters that will be sent back to the inn, they would also lose all of the attached cards. So in this case, the torch will be just discarded, and the Iron Druid will go back to the inn and can be hired during a later turn. As the blue player was not able to deal with the trap here, this trap will be discarded, so he does not gain any experience points from this card, which is really bad. And now it's again the turn of the Cryptmaster. Now it could be that in a bigger stack there could be an additional trap, and now the Cryptmaster would say, hey, there's an additional trap. If there are no traps, then he would say, or he could then check for monsters, and then he would say, okay, there are monsters in this tomb. Now the raiding player could decide to leave the tomb crypt immediately. If he doesn't do that, then the monsters are revealed, and then in this case they are all revealed at the same time, and then the normal combat would start. In this case, the second card is only Bruntor's Fist, so this would be a treasure. But keep in mind that the red player still has Sir Aileron Dilshaw as his party, and he can always say, hey, I want you to encounter him as your very first monster, and I think this is what the red player will do. So he will announce now that Aileron will now be his monster. This is the only monster now in this crypt. There are no other effects in play, but now the Cryptmaster doesn't have to show the treasure yet. So first of all, you have to deal with any monsters now. Now you cannot flee immediately, so you have to do at least one combat action from the Cryptmaster, and the Cryptmaster is normally always first. So let's see. The Cryptmaster would now announce his attack. Normally, when you attack with a normal monster as the Cryptmaster, the raiding party or the raiding player could choose the defending character or the character that takes the actual hit. But in this character, this is not allowed. And the Cryptmaster says, I will attack your cleric. So he would now be allowed to roll 2 green die, 1 blue die, and 1 red die. And now he will roll them, and again each success will be a hit. Remember, the cleric has, I think, 4 hit points because of his prayer. So we are looking for less than 4 hits for the blue player. This is only 1 hit here, so the cleric only takes 1 wound. Now it's the turn of the raiding party, and he can now choose with which character he will attack first. And first of all, he will use his backstab reaction card here, and he will attach this backstab card to his rogue here. And remember, this backstab allows you to add your skill dice to your attack dice, and this can be pretty nasty. So in total, she has now 5 green dice and 2 blue dice, and there's only 1 monster, so he will attack, or she will attack, Aileron. So this is the dice pool of Vestra, and we are looking for at least 3 hits here. And awesome, 1, 2, and 3. And as 3 successes are more than enough to kill this one, he will now be discarded. So this was not really lucky for the red player, but I wanted to show you how mean this game can be. So this character will be removed from the game, but therefore we are allowed to bring a new character to the inn. And this would be Isherus. Isherus is an awesome all-rounder, as you can see. So he has 2 blue dice in any discipline, basically. But when you cast or hire this guy, you have to face 1 tomb card that the player to your left would draw. So this can be pretty nasty, but this could also be a treasure card. And also Isherus is a cleric, fighter, and wizard. So he brings you a prayer and a spell. So this is really a very awesome character. As this was the last monster, he could now react and do, after you kill the last monster in the crypt, roll Cone's holiness die. For each success, remove 1 wound from a character. So this can be very nice, and he has a wound. So let's roll his base blue die, and remember, because of the prayer, he also has 1 additional red die here. So let's roll that, and we are looking for at least 1 success. Yeah, not a problem. He can heal his wound. Awesome. And now the last step would commence in this raiding crypt, and this would to achieve the treasures or the artifact that can be found. And this would be Bruntor's Fist. This is a glove. This is a treasure worth 5 experience points, and this glove says gain +1 attack, skill, magic, and holiness for each item attached to this character. This is very nice, and you can now, or you have now 2 options. For once, you can immediately bank this artifact. Banking means you put it somewhere out of sight of any other player, and you will have these 4 experience points it's more or less like in the bank, so it's secure. No one can take these from you under normal circumstances. But you could also think of attaching these artifacts to one of your characters, and I think as these are only 4 experience points, I think I will do that, and I think I will attach this artifact also to Vestra here, so she is now getting really powerful with all her cards right now. So there's no real hand limit or card limit, only you have to remember the traits, so she would not be allowed to gain a second glove card, for example. If she goes to the inn at a later stage of this game, she could then decide to bank this artifact as well. But again, if Vestra will die, then all attached cards will be lost. But now let's go to the red player, and he will raid this one tomb over here. So in this case, the blue player will draw the crypt card and he will check it out. And this is a trap, the black moss. Again, the blue player would not give him too many informations about this card. He would not say, okay, hey, you can try to disarm it with one character and only one character, and you just have to disarm it with magic. Again, he won't tell you how many dice he would be allowed to roll. Of course, I have forgotten that this says to cast this spell here, the stone skin, before entering a crypt, one character gains +2 hit points. So I think I will attach this spell now to Igraine here, and we say we give these 2 additional hit points to Cardin, because Cardin has only 2 hit points. So until the end of this turn, Cardin now has 4 hit points. And I'm really thinking of, let's see, now that's hard to tell. I think I will use Cardin now to try to disarm the trap here. Cardin brings 1 green die and 5 blue dice. I'm only allowed to use 1 character in this case, so Cardin has to deal with that trap. So this is the dice pool for the red player, and you can already see the color coding of these dice is not really ideal. So this seems to be a green die, these are the blue dice, and they come pretty close. Especially players with some level of color blindness do have problems, and also when the lighting is not that great. So maybe the designer should really go for maybe having a green die, a yellow die, for example, instead of this green here. But okay, for now this should be okay. So he will now roll his dice, and you don't believe it, these are 4 successes, so we'll count this as a success. And then the Crypt Master would say, yeah, 4 successes were enough, so this was the black moss. Normally, in the case of a failure, destroy all items attached to the raiding parties. This wouldn't be that bad. Of course, there is this X, of course, now that's a problem. But in this case, the red player was able to disarm this trap, so he can now directly bank this trap here, and this would score him 5 experience points or victory points by the end of the game. Awesome! As this script only held 1 tomb card, then the raid is over for the red player, and now it would be the turn of the blue player. But I think I will end my playthrough at this point in time, so the next episode will be much faster, much smoother, much more streamlined, because now most of the rules are already explained, so this is already a good thing. And so then, as of the next video, I think we can really dive into some more actual turns here. I really hope you enjoyed my playthrough so far, and hope to see you soon in my next episode, and until then, bye bye.